Well, one team who would be more than eager to get into that tournament, one fan base that would want to get into it. You was on hockey night or Monday night hockey last night. The Vancouver Canucks, or sorry, that wasn't last night. Ignore me that part of it. But the Vancouver Canucks would love to. Their fan base would love for them to get in that sort of situation. They blow a 3-goal lead to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Yet again, Bruce Boudreau's, I don't even know what this guy thinks or how he deals with this, but what are your thoughts on what's going on with this Canucks team that just continues to find new, somewhat humiliating ways to go through the season?
Yeah, I was watching the game. We were doing the intermissions, Luke Gadzik and I, and honestly, it's they went up 3-0, and Luke and I kind of turned to each other and said, "Okay, Penguins win this game," and we chuckled. And then the Penguins scored 3 goals in the next, 6 minutes. We're like, "Oh my God," you know. Honestly, they could have been caved in much more than losing 5-4. It was pretty shocking, the lack of defensive structure we saw. And whether you want to put this on Bruce Boudreau, I think you could put it on the personnel and the fact that management didn't really go out and address what they really needed, the elephant in the room of that they needed to bulk up their defense. And instead they went out and signed Mikheyev and some other forwards. And it just seems like between the personnel and the lack of structure, it's a recipe for disaster, especially in today's NHL, where it's hard to defend on the best of days. And we saw last night, no lead is safe. But when you're the Vancouver Canucks, it just seems. I asked Luke at one point, is this a psychological thing or a physical thing? And he said it's probably a combination. They start their very first game of the year, guys. You probably remember this. They were up 3-0 on the Edmonton Oilers, and they lost that game, I think 5-3. And that was it. The Avalanche started on night 1 of the NHL season. It's very curious to see what's going to happen there. And I just keep wondering, we're waiting for the first shoe to drop, whether it's a change in coaching, whether it's a big trade. Everyone's talking about what's going to happen with Bo Horvat. We just want something to happen, and then we can sort of officially see the direction this team's trying to take, because right now they just seem to be, they're running in mud, and it's not pretty to see.
We're talking to David Amber, host of Rogers Monday Night Hockey on Sportsnet. Hey, you mentioned, that was pretty good, wasn't it?
That was very good.
Hey, you mentioned something to drop in Vancouver, and I get the Bo Horvat thing hasn't happened yet because we know where teams are up against the cap, especially the contending ones, and they're going to have to allocate more cap space the longer the season goes on to pick up a guy like that. So we assume that that's going to happen at the deadline here. But the mere fact that Bruce Boudreau remains out there, I'm watching an interview the other day and hearing the crack in his voice talking about there's still hope, there's still time. Is that the biggest surprise that a market like Vancouver, David, would just sit there and do nothing regarding this?
Well, it seems so strange, Nick, simply because it's not the time of the season it is, because we're only halfway through it, as Bruce said. It's that this soap opera started when they lost their first 7 games. The soap opera started, in their first road trip. Their first 5 games on the road, they lost them all, some of them in humiliating and dramatic fashion, blowing 2 and 3 goal leads. And already people were like, okay, this isn't working. We got to blow it up. You had Jim Rutherford talking in the media. You had, Bruce Boudreau saying things about the players. You had the players, going back and forth. It got so ugly right away. And it's been, 11 weeks since then or 10 weeks since then. So we've all been sort of waiting. How is this going to unfold, and why is it taking so long? And there's been these sort of little small snippets of, they've won 3 in a row. Here they go. And last year, I honestly did believe that they could get back into the playoff chase. I really believe that, even though they were in the depths of despair until they, changed coaches in December. This year, it's just felt so different from day one. This team has just felt off. The chemistry has just seemed to be off, and the whole, bring in the new management. So why don't they're like, let's get the identity of this management on this team. I'm baffled a little bit like you. We all keep waiting. I understand these are big decisions. These aren't things, you take a measured approach when you make these types of big decisions, but it's taking a long time. And, they're running in mud here in a situation where, had they, acted earlier, who knows? And I'm not saying about Bruce Boudreau necessarily, but just had they sort of defined here's what we're doing, and let's go about doing it. Maybe they'd be in a much better position to draft Connor Bedard, or maybe they'd be in a much better position to make the playoffs. I don't know. but the inactiveness of the situation is a bit startling to me as well.